Tristan with Nerdette's Newsstand, and today we got some huge bombshells for DC Comics, for Batman, for Joker, for James Tynion, and the industry as a whole. Now, if you haven't heard yet, James Tynion has officially quit Batman and the Joker titles that he has, and his exclusive contract is not being renewed. This means a lot, but this also is and has more ramifications for the industry as a whole. Now the Substack that Nick Spencer went to and some of the others, we're seeing Scott Snyder teaching on Substack. We're seeing, I believe, Ram V is heading over there also, and so is Jonathan Hickman. Some of these huge names are heading over there in hopes that it is something viable and it is something big. Now, I do believe it is something big, and we will take a look at the details of James quitting Batman. But I do believe it is something big. However, if too many big names head over there, I think people will stop supporting it. I think if you're stretched too thin, people may be like, yeah, $7 a month times 14 different creators, it gets to be a lot. And I think this is a game changer, but I don't think this is a game ender, if that makes sense. Now, when it comes to James Tynion, I do believe that he is making the right choice. A lot of what we're looking at in his Batman run has been the creation of new IP, whether it is Clown Hunter or Punchline or my personal favorite Ghost Maker. None of those are his. None of those belong to him. They belong to DC. Therefore, any rights, royalties, shows, anything in the future, he may get royalties for, but he's not going to be making a great deal of money. Now, when it comes to his other titles being picked up for shows, such as Something is Killing the Children and The Department of Truth, I believe he's going to make quite a bit more with those properties. So, why is he quitting? Let's take a look. I'm actually still kind of in shock, and my mind goes to who will be next on Batman. That's the scary part, right? Because you don't want somebody to take over that is a terrible writer like John Ridley, which I think is impossible because of his work with Black Panther and I Am Batman, a title that's going to be ongoing. But you want somebody that's good. Now, my hopes is that it is Mariko Tamaki. She has done more than prove herself on Wonder Woman and now on Detective Comics. It was actually getting to the point where it was better than Tynion's Batman. So I think her continuing that would be a natural extension of the Detective Comics line. But then who do you replace on Detective Comics? Again, just me being my biased self, I hope they put somebody like Stephanie Phillips on there or Joshua Williamson. Maybe Joshua Williamson will get Batman. I don't know. So there is a lot of things to talk about. Maybe Tom King will come back. That would make everybody happy, right? Yeah, no. So there's a lot of good choices going around. Jeremy Adams, some of the other smaller names, but it's just going to be a wait and see. But for the time right now, we know why he's quitting. He says, but in the midst of it all, I was trying to make one of the most difficult decisions of my professional life. DC had presented me with a 3-year renewal of my exclusive contract with the intent of me working on Batman for the bulk of the time. I was grateful for that offer, but I couldn't help but look at the success of my original creator-owned titles and wonder if it was the right choice. And then I received another contract, the best I've ever been given in a decade as a comic book writing professional, a grant from Substack to create a new slate of original comic book properties directly on their platform. And my co-creator and I would own them completely, with Substack taking none of the intellectual property rights or even the publishing right. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. Given my bandwidth, I knew I could only pick one of the two contracts. sitting in front of me. Can't have an exclusive contract and make different properties for Substack. So, with a lot of preamble to say that I am leaving Batman with issues 117 in November, only 6 more, and the Joker with issue 14 next April, with no immediate plans to write any other superhero comics in the future. Now, he does say he doesn't have any immediate plans, and that does still, of course, mean that he could write something in an anthology or something at DC, and I'm assuming at some point he probably will, but I don't think that is him being anything but focusing on that Substack. And there is different tiers. I think it's $7 a month for the monthly. I do like that he offered a annual one where it's $75, and that's fair, but with it, you get a signed copy of a comic book. It doesn't say which comic book. He said he's going to have to dig some up. But that is compelling enough for somebody like me to look into. That is compelling enough. And he goes on to say, but there's a bigger side to all of this. One thing that keeps hitting me the more I think about it for the last couple of decades, there's always been this particular model to sustainable careers in the comic book writing. First, you do work with some of the smaller independent publishers to get the attention of the big two. Then you transition into writing for the big two. Then you work your way up the ladder to the highest profile book you can muster, which is about Spider-Man or Batman. And now Substack has Nick Spencer and James Tynion. And that is pretty much what we have seen when it comes to being a comic book professional. People really want to have to be a comic book professional in order to, go about that ladder. But even if you do that, you're still subject to the whims of a small market and very specific habits and tastes. There are limits that you can't get away with if you're worried about funding issue 6 when you're writing issue 1. This deal gives me the security to build those sort of books that I think could thrive in the comic market given the chance, but require growing in a different sort of way than monthly periodicals. And the title that he is doing is, I'm not a fan of the art. I am going to give it a chance, like I said, but it's definitely something very different. It's definitely something, it's called Blue Book, right? And it's about aliens, and I love Tynion, and I think he could do this. The art style, I'm not a fan of. I will be the first to say that. I will support it for a while just because of who he is, but the art it's something to behold. So, where does Batman go for here? Because we can take a look at Tynion's stuff and look at this art style, and I can say I don't like it all day long. But the main issue here we're talking about is DC Comics, right? So, where do they go from here? What do they do? Who do they get? Just stay in your little circle of creators that you've created around the Batman title. Stay in the area of people that know the characters, that love the characters as much as you and I. Stay in that passionate zone, and you will be fine. Now, like I said, I gave who I thought I would. I think Mariko would be the best of the best when it comes like that. But there are also different writers they could reach out to over across the field at Marvel, or, go a totally different path. I am very glad to know that John Ridley has a contract at Marvel, because it's not something that I've never dropped Batman. I dropped Detective Comics for a while, about 3 years ago, but I've never dropped Batman, really. And I would absolutely. I will not. That is one person I will not absolutely support. So as far as Joker, I would say maybe Jeff Lemire. That would be a dream. I think he would be fantastic. Or Marika Andolfo, who's already writing the backup story. So I don't know. I don't know where they're going to go from here, but this is going to shake up the industry, and I'll probably do a video about that exclusively, more than we realize. But it's got to be that middle point where it doesn't feel like you're supporting, if you support 20 people on there, whether they're artists or writers. And obviously that's a lot. That's $140 a month. That's what you're spending maybe in 2 months in comics. So do you see why I say there has to be a middle ground? It has to be to where there's no difference in price from what your pull list is, or if you want to continue those pulls, even though he's off of it, to what you're spending over there. So I'm curious to see how this works out. Basically, this is what he is offering at this point. You get a lot of cool stuff. There's only 24 hours for the founders tier. If you want to go ahead and check it out, I will link this in the pinned comment with everything that it entails, everything that he wants to say, but I don't want to make this too long. But it is a little sad to know that one of my favorite writers is now gone. You know what? I take back what I said earlier. Mariko would be great, but I would love for them to get Ram V on an exclusive contract also. I would love to see him. He does a great job with the dark and gritty of Swamp Thing. He does a great job with Justice League Dark. Get him on this title. I think you would see a lot of success in a very different way. Not just, oh my God, look at my new Bat Tech. Oh my God, look at my new Bat Tech. I could see Ram V covering that the very much detective side that's been needed for a very long time. I would love to see it. There's a bunch of creators I could sit here and talk about. I wish were on Batman. A bunch. But what about Joker? What about filling in that hole? Because he would help with stuff like Infinite Frontier. He helped a lot with death metal. There is a lot of holes that are going to need to be filled now. And who's going to step up and actually do it? That sounded so pervy. Oops. I'm sorry. We're going to move on. I am curious to see how this all plays out. I think DC needs to very quickly say something, because a lot of people are going to go, this is kind of the new way. This is kind of the future of comics. Comics is shifting. It's an evolving market. This is going to be digital. A lot of people don't like digital, so they'll stick with their others. But they need to say something, and they need to say it quick. Now, I don't think they actually will until they find out who it is, and I'm assuming all of this was relatively sprung on them. But even so, I'm curious to see the fallout of not only James Tynion leaving that hole in DC Comics, but how it's going to affect the market as a distributor of brand new comics, brand new stuff from Nick Spencer, from Jonathan Hickman, from James Tynion, from teaching classes. Like, there's a lot that it offers. And I'm all here for it. If it's a way for the comic book industry to expand and evolve, I'm all here for it. So let me know, of course, what you guys think, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.